Hi, I'm Tim and welcome to the 1916 Company. It's always a pleasure to talk to one of my colleagues in the business. And today we welcome a guest from Italy, the proprietor of GMT Watch Italy and one of the foremost dealers of the Indies, as we call them, Jacopo Corvo. Jacopo, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Tim.
So, I think we can all confidently state at this point that the arrival of independent watch brands is no longer new or cutting edge or the latest trend. So let's go a little bit deeper inside this community. What do you feel has the most energy and interest behind it this year? It could be a brand, it could be a creator, it could be a product. What's really hot in the independent scene right now?
There are, particularly two creators, not new creators per se, or not new names, but maybe names that we heard in the world of watchmaking and that the bigger public didn't discover yet. One is Luca Soprana, and who worked behind the scenes for many, many years creating insane movements, and now he's finally come out with two lines of products actually. One is the Derek Pratt that he's making with the Pratt's family, yes. And one is the Soprana, so he just introduced his time-only watch, and I know that he has many other plans, and I think it's not innovation per se, but it's just state-of-the-art what he's doing. And I visited his atelier. He's doing everything with old machines. I mean, there's nothing you can relate to what big brands are doing today with computers, CAD, etc., etc. So I think his approach is very traditional, and that's what a lot of consumers, a lot of collectors are looking for today.
In a lot of ways, he was sort of like what Denis Flageolet and F.P. Journe were during the 80s and 90s, what Christophe Claret was prior to 2009. He was the guy you went to if you wanted something impossible built quickly and properly.
Absolutely.
All of those crazy Jacob & Co. complications, that was Luca Soprana, a man who really put in his time on some of the most ambitious watchmaking projects of the last 20 years.
Absolutely. Well, he prototyped movements also for other brands which cannot be named, but you'll be astonished on the level.
Yeah. Oh, we know some of those, but offline. But great to see him finally getting his due. I think this is a guy who richly deserves to be known by his real name.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms of others coming into the space, it does get a little bit crowded. You talk about how some are making things that are very nice, but not very innovative. Like, okay, this has been done 2 or 3 times before. Who's really pushing the limits, doing things that maybe haven't been done before?
For sure, some of the smaller ones, in the price section between 1,000 and 3,000, they've been super creative, I think, in the last years. Look at Space One, what M.A.D is doing, bringing back the brand. I think that they really brought something very cool, out of the ordinary, and for a price point which is very accessible.
I mean, that is interesting because I think the idea is that, well, independent brands, F.P. Journe, the Grunefelds, De Bethune, Grubel Forsey, people think, well, you have to have enough money to buy a house if you want to get one of these independent watches.
Absolutely.
And you're saying between 1,000 and like 3,000 Swiss franc or euro, you can
Swiss
get something
francs,
very
yeah.
credible. Something maybe like Otsuka Low-Tech.
Otsuka Low-Tech, for example, yeah, they do beautiful watches and you pay less than 10,000. I mean, it's
far left. If you're lucky enough to get them in Japan, they're far less than 10,000.
Yeah.
That's the challenge right there. But the number 5, the 6, the 7.5, I've seen them all on the wrists of people recently who could afford anything they want, and they choose that.
Absolutely. I've touched them with my hands only thanks to some collectors that purchase them. Some of our customers, for example, who collects watches for, complications, very expensive and important pieces, but they don't collect only that, In the end, collecting is a journey. So there are people that when they reach a certain level, they don't collect watches with certain criteria, And there are some other people that collects everything from Furlan Marri to a Tourbillon Vertical by F.P. Journe. It's.
I know it. I've seen some of those Furlan Marri watches go at auction for what would be AP money.
Absolutely.
So definitely, if you've got a high regard for watches, you tend to know yourself. You tend to define what you want in terms of your taste rather than price points.
I think another great startup which we could not say it's actually new, because it's Max Busser's M.A.D editions.
Okay.
It brought the
Opening a new front, if you will.
Absolutely. It brought MB&F with Max Busser's DNA, the M.A.D one, to a different level. And a lot of people, a lot of traditional collectors were going around with, and are still going around with M.A.D ones and M.A.D two now.
And the M.A.D 2 is quite inventive. The M.A.D 1 was interesting because the idea was almost like if you're going to have a micro build out of a few hundred pieces a year, very expensive watches, can you create the same excitement around watches that cost only a few $1,000s but are difficult to obtain? So, Max is kind of a very innovative guy because between retail, clocks, horological curiosities, the M.A.D editions, the 1, the 2, and MB&F, he's sort of created like a universe for his brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's. I think MB&F is a unique platform. I talk to Max quite often. He's been also my boss when I was living in Dubai. So we exchanged ideas. And one day I told him, Max, I think that one day you can design a house, an MB&F house or a M.A.D house, like literally with the M.A.D gallery codes. So not only MB&F, but also with the creators and the artists surrounding what is Max Busser and what is his vision. So I think he can do basically anything, a car.
I mean, at this point, between the M.A.D gallery, where you can sell literally anything, and his horological machines, it's interesting to see Max and contrast him with someone like Kari Voutilainen, where Voutilainen is putting together every organ of a watch manufacturer possible. Dials, cases, movements, decorations, multiple brands. He's become just a universal source, but for others, whereas Max has built out this sphere of things that he very much controls. But you found these two independents who have very constrained production, building out expanded universes. And what do you think of Kari becoming like a supplier across the industry? Because he's really, more than anyone, become like a small cottage industry.
Yeah, well, Kari is not only a great watchmaker, he's also a very good businessman. So when he saw the opportunity, he saw a gap, especially in certain areas of Switzerland, and he created, for example, Comblemin. Comblemin, now it's producing affordable guilloche dials made with machines, of course. So he's actually working for many of these newcomers we were talking about before. They are produced, some of the parts, some of the components, and many dials are produced at Comblemin. So Kari became, I don't know when is the last time that you visited the Fleurier, the valley, but you have Comblemin below. On top, you have the Chapeau de Napoléon, which is his new manufacturer, and now he recently opened a new facility, which used to be a school. So he's expanding, and it's very particular to see how different minds and different creators expand their business. For example, we have F.P. Journe. He started with the manufacture movement, and then he moved to the dial and case factory, which they came after, etc., etc. While Kari was doing more or less everything under one roof, and then is now separating a bit the production parts. So it's very interesting.
You can vertically integrate even when you only make a few watches under your own name per year. It's interesting. He's almost like a miniature version of Michel Parmigiani and the Parmigiani Company.
Exactly.
Okay. So what do you think of Krayon, for example, Remy Mayat?
I love Remy, of course. Nobody can say the opposite, and I really like the watches. They are very traditional for me, even though the complications are unique and are very avant-garde and very new. The watches look very traditional, so that's also a plus, I think, for collectors. Very traditional collectors who likes round shapes, classic watches, etc. They don't necessarily have to go to tap into a design language which is completely different for them, like the Bethune, Urwerk, MB&F, Grobel Forsey, etc. But they can have a beautiful piece of independent watchmaking with new R&D, which is one of the plus of independent watch brands. I mean, they invest a lot in research and development. while having a beautiful, super classic watch on the wrist.
And like you said, for the amount of innovation inside it, the Krayon pieces, they don't look as spectacular maybe as their engineering. But I find it's interesting because with Remy, you've got someone who authentically does have the ability to engineer a watch and build a watch and do something different. It's not like a lot of these guys who are coming up now who have different variations of beautifully decorated, 6498s with a complemine dial on the front. So although he's not brand new, he didn't just pop up this spring, for example, I think Remy's really doing some of the most exciting stuff in the independent space, precisely because he does represent the intersection of engineering and watchmaking.
Absolutely. 100%.
Now just make him a little bit more spectacular to look at. I guess that's the lesson. So what do we need more of in the space right now? Because I think we've all got our pet peeves, things that irritate us, but what do we need more of? What do we want to encourage in the independent space? It could be social, it could be community, it could be design, anything on any of those fronts. It could be access, awards, more or less.
But I think that the world of independent watchmaking today is quite complete at 360 degrees. The community is there, the creativity is there, the creators are there, the research and development is there, the events as well. You see, Geneva Watch Days is 90% independence. Dubai Watch Week is the first year that Richemont brands will enter the exhibition, so they always focused mostly on independence. I think that right now the world is pretty much developed and up to speed for independent watch brands, and for the collectors who wants to see the watches, discover the creators, talk to them, talk to somebody who dreamed about the watch that you are wearing. It's something you cannot do with traditional brands, and it's something you cannot do in basically 90% of the product goods that you can buy anywhere in the world. So it's a unique opportunity for them, and I think that social media, these exhibitions, these events, and local exhibitions as well, helped a lot creating this community. And a lot of collectors really feel part of it,
I think that's a really good point. We went from this sort of structure where you got all your news from the internet and magazines. Basel World was for dealers and for industry insiders. SEHH was for dealers and industry insiders. In theory, toward the end, a member of the public could get in, but you wouldn't have access. You wouldn't be able to touch anything. We have a lot of consumer-oriented shows now. Some are driven by dealers like I Am Watch out in Singapore. Some are driven by large regional retailers like Dubai Watch Week, magazines like Watch Time New York, and even now Watches and Wonders is more consumer-oriented than SEHH ever was. Geneva Watch Days is very visitor-friendly. So I think now you have more smaller shows where a person who's just a dude can go in and actually speak to a creator.
That's amazing.
That's a lot of fun. Even I enjoy that because in the aftermarket, I wasn't getting all those invites. So this is a big upgrade. If you're a dude who just likes watches, you can book your tickets, hotels in Geneva, go to Geneva Watch Days, actually try stuff on the wrist. What do we need less of in the watch space? And this could be social, this could be product, this could be fads, social media. What do we need less of that we'd like to just see less of across the board?
Less marketing. Less, can I say bullshit? Less bullshit. A bit more transparency. That's it.
You just mean something along the lines of don't say you made the movement if you didn't, like that sort of thing? That's fair. I also think snobs, unfortunately, I hate to say it, it is an expensive hobby, and even when we talk about an affordable watch being 3,000 franc, 3,000 euro, still a lot of money. I do think that it would be great if, all of these guys who can afford Grubel 4C, Ferdinand Berthoud, de Bethune, they say, you know what, I'm going to be like a big brother to collectors coming into the hobby and foster more of an onboarding mindset where people who are veteran, instead of creating these closed off spaces, really try to welcome people in.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's already happening, especially on Instagram. I've met a lot of people through Instagram. 80% probably never met them in real person still, but I think that it's happening, and I see it also in our boutique. We see people my age or slightly younger that brings on, the little cousin, 18, 20 years old, passionate about watches, but he knew only, few things that can see on the wrist of people his age, So I see also more and more, for example, kids that graduated family parents want to gift him a watch because it's tradition in Italy, 18 years old or graduation, and the family wants to gift him a Rolex, and he's like, no, I want a Resense, or I want a Trilob, or I want something else, same, more or less same price, but completely different. And sometimes we see the parents, they don't understand, and the kids are like, because I saw that video and that watch, I really love it. No, it's the first time I try it on the wrist. I really want this. I don't want that one.
And that makes perfect sense.
It's interesting.
Because of the internet. And honestly, I started looking at watches in the 90s as a kid in middle school and then high school. And my feeling back then was, well, this is for very old men who live very far away. And now the thing is, kids get access to the information, the depth of information, as long as you just stick with good sources. You got kids today who know more than auction catalogers from the 90s.
Absolutely.
They know more about watches than people who used to catalog for Christie's and Sotheby's. So it's an interesting environment. I do think the information's there and the communities are there. I just want to see people who already have that unbelievable privilege and access be a little bit more welcoming and a little bit warmer to people coming in. And I think we all need we can all make a contribution to that. So let me ask then, what are people asking for when they come into your shop? Because you carry a lot of independents. Where is the interest these days? What brands, what creators, what types of watches are people talking about?
It's diagonal. You don't have a straight line or people coming only for one brand. It's kind of well distributed. Of course, the super small brands like Voutilainen, like Haldeman, etc., they attract less crowd per se because the production is small, not everybody knows them, they don't do marketing, they barely have social media.
Haldeman barely has a website.
Yeah, exactly. So mostly, I would say that the day-by-day walk-ins are mostly interested in high-end watches that they don't have the chance to see every day. If they are foreigners, but even if they are Italians, I mean, they can see them, or Europeans, they can see them in Italy only in one place, which is our boutique. In Europe, maybe in 3, 4, 5 locations, top. So a lot of curious people are actually that discover those brands or those watches on social media, etc., or they saw them in auction catalogs. They want to see them, they want to touch them, and of course, when you have something like that in the metal, I mean, it shocks you. It's completely different from anything you've seen before. Most of the watches don't have hands. Sometimes they don't have dial. So it's nice also to see collectors from every age and every country gets fascinated and eventually purchase some of these watches.
And that is important. We do need physical spaces to see watches, and even the trade shows only come a few times a year. That's why I don't think physical retail in this industry will ever die, because at the end of the day, it's a corporeal product. You can't download your watch.
Absolutely.
I mean, even if you own a 3D printer, you can't download a Grubel 4C. So there's still got to be some place where you can try the watches on. And, interesting thought, because I know you carry a lot of brands that are connected to Chanel. I had this thought the other day that Chanel is sort of like the luxury group of the future in the watch space. Although they do own Bell & Ross, they control that, and they have the case and clasp maker Chatelain, which is an exceptional supplier. Their strategy has mostly been to go in and get 20 to 25% of a small, low-volume brand, get brands that are not overlapping in their clientele and their styles, and leave enough of the ownership stake with the owner that they're still independent, entrepreneurial, and distinctive. And it's not like just the owner says, okay, I got an 80% payout, I'm gonna go sip a drink on a boat somewhere.
Exactly.
I mean, is that the way to go forward? Just buy a small share of a bunch of great brands that don't overlap, as opposed to 8 Richemont brands that all overlap?
For sure, it's a way to invest and believe in the watch industry. And it's a different way, Chanel is also a family owned. It's owned by 2 brothers. The good thing with Chanel is that they always proved it in fashion. So they always had these métier d'art. Métier d'art meaning in fashion, for example, in watchmaking can have a different meaning. In fashion, it means that if they purchased a métier d'art, maybe they purchased a small company that was making feathers. Was making feathers not only for Chanel, but for Chanel, for Dior, etc., etc. They purchased this company, Sometimes because there's no continuity in the family that owns the company, or sometimes they're going bankrupt, or whatever reason, they purchase it and they keep it exactly as it is. They don't want to develop, to grow, to change. They just want to preserve the savoir-faire. And this is what they're doing in watchmaking as well. So they are giving more financial stability to small brands without changing their DNA, their creativity, their commercial aspect, etc., and giving them also a platform, which is Chanel, to develop their brand. Example, one of the brands which Chanel has an ownership or a share wants to open a boutique in New York. They have spaces. They have buildings in New York. They have retail spaces that they already rent with Chanel, or they already own the walls as well. So these brands, they facilitate whatever aspect of their business or creation or supplying, etc., they need, just because they are part of it. And they're like, we are here, tell us what you need. And this is a dream for a creator and for an entrepreneur.
And it makes a lot of sense if you look at where Chanel's investing. You know, they wanted to have a men's watch, they wanted to have women's watches. So through Chatelain, they were able to make ceramic cases and ceramic bracelets. Absolutely. On the J12 side. Through Bell & Ross, they were able to offer men's watches that were more of a sporting style. Romain Gaultier comes in, now they have the engineering capability to make mechanical parts for their watches for the Chanel High Horology. Oh, yes. And Gaultier has more security, you know, with a big parent backing him. Max Busser gets to, you know, bring in some money to expand his empire. He's going into retail, he's going into branding, yeah. But he also gets the backstop of a strong company, because he told me the closest he ever came to going bankrupt was trying to develop 4 movements at the same time. If you've got a large corporate parent, that's a lot easier to do.
You can do it.
And so Chanel, you know, they also own a share of FP Journe. There may be some day that Journe decides to move out of watchmaking and go teach, and there needs to be someone with a steady hand who's not driven by shareholders. Absolutely. To act as a steward. So you've got this connection to a lot of different brands that don't step on each other's toes. And sometimes, like Chatelain or Gaultier, you have the ability to trade competencies across these brands so that they can do things that they couldn't normally do with the budgets they had previously.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So really cool. Just to review, guys, Chanel, they've got their own high horology watches. They've got their more mainstream J12 type watches. They've got Chatelain, which is a component maker. They've got Bell & Ross. And then they have large shares of Gaultier, FP Journe, and MB&F. So that's why I say they're kind of like the group of the future. They own a lot without monopolizing what they own. What are you buying yourself? It must be very difficult. People always ask me this question, but you even see stuff that's a little bit more exotic than what I see on a regular basis. So tell me what you want. Like, you're buying your own watches today. You're picking 2 or 3 pieces to keep. What would you buy, and who would you buy it from?
I'm buying mostly pre-owned, like neo-vintage or 2000, 2010 pieces of this, more or less the same brands I work with and I represent, because they are my favorites, simply. That's why we work with them. So this is a Voutilainen. It's the prototype of our limited edition that we launched in March, and that's the last new watch I purchased. I mean, I'm keeping for myself. For the rest, I bought, for example, Urwerk UR202 white gold, the Hammerhead on auction a couple of months ago. I bought a Vagabondage 2 Platinum by FP Journe. I'm buying mostly discontinued pieces because I feel that they fit my collection and our collection, because it's me and my brother collecting. We have different tastes, of course, but sometimes we manage to buy what we both like. And I try to buy first series, meaning watches that came out that way, and then they did, for example, 2, 3, 4 variations. But like legacy machine, my first legacy machine from MB&F was the LM1. Exactly the first, how it came out, how it was launched. White gold, gray base plate, I love it. So I'm a sucker for this. And I wear mostly black and gray colors on my watches, except like some a bit more bright
little bit
colors
pop.
like this one. But mostly it's gray, black, steel color, which can be white, gold, platinum, or steel. Yeah. And you? What are you?
You know, I'm a big fan of people I know and believe in. Like I have this saying in the world of bicycles, like bicycle frames really, as long as they're made by people who are competent, they're all kind of the same. So I'm really interested in the values, the people behind the bikes, and I'm interested in having personal relationships with the people who make my watches. A lot of times, you know, with something like Garrick or Dan Reuter, they're people I know personally or people I've supported on their way up through the industry. And so I really tend to target watches that are made by friends or people I really believe in. The people behind the watches have become the most important thing for me. Also, you know, highly recommend Dan Reuter out of Brooklyn, former DJ, now a watchmaker. He's an American dream. Other than that, how can people reach out to you? Like if they want to find you, obviously GMT Italy, where's your physical store?
Yeah. Well, I've always been super connected with a lot of collectors around the world through Instagram. And my Instagram is Jacopo with a J _ Corvo, Corvo. I'm always online, basically, because you know how we are. So
Yeah, me too.
phone always in the pocket, WhatsApp, Instagram, etc. So if you do want to reach out, even just for a chat, don't hesitate. I'm always happy to meet new people, even behind the screen.
And you're in Rome, right?
I'm in Milano.
Milan. The physical store, if you're going to Milan, you definitely want to check out GMT Italy. They've got all the real stuff in the flesh, and frankly, even for me, that would be the first time I'd ever seen a Haldemar. Jacopo, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks again for having me here.